Bogosity podcast for the 29th of September 2014, the podcast that loves the smell of butt hurt in the morning. This is your host, Shane Killian, and joining me again this week is Dave Turcotte. Dave, welcome back to the show.
It's good to be back. You asked me for a favor to do this podcast one more time, and I will answer your favor accordingly.
Also joining us for the first time, he's been a regular and a prolific poster on both the website and YouTube channel for years under various completely impronounceable names. But now he's known as Travis Retriever. Travis, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
So I did promise Jacob last week that I'd do something for him, and that's to deliver a rant on his behalf. And Travis, I know you have one of these of your own we'll get to a little later, but after we finished the show last week, Jacob's going to send his file to me over Skype like we always do, and he was using the Windows Sound Recorder in Windows 8 to record it, which shouldn't have been a problem, except he didn't know where the recorded file was. And there wasn't like a save as or anything like that, and I was trying to talk him around it, and we couldn't figure it out. I had him open an Explorer window and had him go to Recent Places. And in Recent Places, you can see all the directories with recently changed files. And according to Recent Places, there was nothing new for that day. All the stuff in there was for yesterday. So
that is just insane.
Oh, but I'm just getting started because I had to get online and figure out how to go through finding a file that the Windows 8 Sound Recorder recorded. And we had to drill down through like half a dozen directories. We had to go into his profile folder, into app data. There was a weird folder with a bunch of random letters and numbers in it. And finally, we got down to the recordings folder. And it was there, and he was able to send it to me. But, geez, what an ordeal.
So, the writing on the wall tells me, don't get Windows 8 if I can.
Yeah, that's pretty much what everyone says. And, I mean, really, Windows 8 has been a hideous blunder. I don't think there's been a blunder this big since New Coke.
Sounds to me like Murphy was having a field day.
Oh,
Someone was going on.
Reminds me of that one time we were going to do the podcast, and it took a podcast's length just to set up to do the podcast.
Oh, yeah, that's happened.
We had to go through Skype's nonsense. We had to go through the Google Talk nonsense. Then we went through. We were going to do it live, I think.
Yeah, that was one of the aborted live attempts.
Yeah, that was.
I think we're just not meant to do this live. I think that's what.
No, I still get like Vietnam-style flashbacks thinking about that.
Oh, God. Don't say live around Dave. He gets PTSD. But I think the lesson here is, I mean, we keep hearing from people that, these big corporations, they just spend a whole bunch of money on marketing and they can get you to buy things that you don't like. And I mean, this is just one big falsification of them. Microsoft is one of the biggest companies in the world. If there's one thing it does well, it's marketing. It's certainly not making an operating system, but they can do marketing. And they marketed Windows 8 with everything they had. I mean, tons of commercials, pushing it through the OEMs. I'm sure you've seen the product placements in TV and movies. I don't think I saw a single computer screen on Under the Dome that didn't have Windows 8 all over it.
And it all begs the question, as Hawkeye would say, if these people know that they're pushing this stuff and, they're going to be full of BS anyways, then why do you keep falling in buying for the stuff?
Well, but I mean, that's the thing. This is just like with New Coke. All that marketing, and people still didn't like it.
Wow.
Speaking of New Coke, did you hear they're bringing Surge back?
Now, which one was Surge?
I think it was supposed to be the competitor to Mountain Dew.
Oh.
It was a drink from the 90s.
Oh, no, I don't remember that one.
Most people don't.
But no, this was a big fiasco. Microsoft not only fired the guy who designed Windows 8, but co-founder Steve Ballmer was CEO at the time, and he was always like Bill Gates' number 2 guy. He was drummed out as CEO, isn't even an executive anymore, and I think Microsoft is now trying to do a lot of damage control with Windows 9 to try and get past all that. So, I mean, if there were any truth to the idea that corporations could just make us like any old crap, Microsoft could do it, and they just couldn't.
It seems like every year. It seems like, not every year, obviously, but every time they come out with a new one, people always say avoid it like the plague. So.
Well, when it first comes out, yeah, because it's got all these bugs and everything in it. But I remember when XP Service Pack 2 came out, that was like, okay, now it's what it needs to be. And that was really good. And man, if it was still being supported and had all the new features and drivers and everything, I'd still be using XP.
Yeah, same here.
I won't lie, my desktop still uses XP. I haven't updated it at all.
If XP is working fine for you, the only problem is they're not sending you the security updates anymore.
Yeah.
So just make sure you're not, just take some basic precautions and you should be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do anything stupid, so that's a good start.
I thought Windows XP wasn't too bad, but I definitely like Windows 7 compared to it.
Windows 7 is basically Vista with a service pack. That's kind of like what it is.
I remember you saying before that something like that basically was like them charging full price for what was essentially like a security update or a service pack or something.
Yeah, well, it was a service pack. It was very much like, XP Service Pack 2, how it fixed everything and got it right. That was Windows 7, except they just decided to charge everyone an upgrade fee for it.
Free?
Whereas service packs are free.
Yeah. I kind of wish that Microsoft updates, they were like more frequent and a bit less intrusive. Like it'll be like once a month for me and it'll be this massive amount of files, like about 150 or so megabytes, and I'm like, oh my god, this is going to tie up my bandwidth for...
Second Tuesday of the month is Patch Tuesday, yeah. Well, I mean, they kept getting complained because they were just putting out update after update after update after update after update because they're just constantly updating things. People were complaining about constantly having to reboot for all these updates, so they said, okay, we'll do it all at once.
Well, they can't do operating systems and they can't do game consoles either. Look at Xbox One.
Oh god.
You know what's funny? Just very recently, the Xbox One launched in Japan for the first time, and I think they had like less than 500,000 people bought the damn thing. And there's pictures of the an actual launch at a store, and you might be able to see a couple of Microsoft and Japan representatives in a tumbleweed.
Ouch.
Bogosity.tv and all of its services are hosted at GoDaddy. I've been very satisfied with GoDaddy's services and their wonderful 24/7 customer support for over 10 years now. So I'm happy to be able to give you this special offer. Just sign up for any new domain, web hosting, email, or other service and get 35% off with the code WOWNOBOGON. That's WOWNOBOGON. Because there's nothing bogus about these savings on quality internet hosting. Just go to GoDaddy.com and use the code WOWNOBOGON. Alright, well, let's sing off-key to the news of the bogus. So you know how the anti-GMO people like to cherry-pick a few rats or some kind of anecdote on all these problems that GMOs apparently cause?
That or blatantly lie.
True. But have you ever wanted a larger scale study? How about 100 billion animals? Is that large enough of a sample size for you?
Well, I don't know. It depends on the result.
It's a Monsanto conspiracy!
We here at the anti-GMO conspiracy, it depends on what we want.
Yeah, Monsanto might have paid off that 100 billion cattle.
Clearly.
No, this is a study published in the Journal of Animal Science, and it's really a study that looks at lots of other studies, looking at livestock health starting at 1983, which is 13 years before GMO crops were introduced, all the way up to 2011. 100 billion animals all total, trillions of genetically modified meals, and the result? Genetically modified feed had no negative effect on the animals, and GM feed is nutritionally equivalent to organics, just like other studies have found.
It's clearly a conspiracy. I'm Jesse Ventura. I saw the documents.
I'm just kind of really glad he never did come over to the Libertarian Party. I think that's the kind of guy we don't need.
No, the only thing good about Jesse Ventura now is the hilarious YouTube poops that people make of his show.
Because I remember for a year, I don't remember if it was Fox News or MSNBC or what, but one of the channels, he had a weekly hour-long show that was actually pretty good.
Well, he had conspiracy theory on True TV as well.
Well, and this was before all that, kind of before. It was either before he went crazy or before we all realized he'd been crazy all along. I don't know how that went, but it was actually pretty good.
To be fair, he was a pro wrestler. He's probably always been crazy in some sort.
Yeah. Pile drived one too many times.
Or too many clotheslines or chairs to the head, whichever.
But I mean, they're talking about how unhealthy GM food is. If GM food was really that unhealthy, why would farmers who need to raise healthy livestock in order to make money, why would they be feeding them so much?
Because it's the same conspiracy nonsense that people always come up with. It's kind of like that one really stupid story that comes up every now and then where it's like, oh, they found a cure for cancer, but they won't give it away or sell it because it'll end the big pharma or some nonsense.
Oh, yeah. They have a cure for cancer, but they won't.
Yeah, it's the same kind of nonsense that's been going around forever. Because for some reason, doing something really useful, it won't make you enough profits.
Oh, yeah, yes, which must be why Windows 8 sold so well compared to Windows 7. Oh, wait.
Well, there was a really good episode of the Freakonomics podcast recently, and they were talking about the world of medicine, and they were talking about ulcers. And for the longest time, treating ulcers was this multi-billion-dollar industry. No one really knew what caused them. And it was just all this stuff to try and take down the stomach acid and, including, really drastic forms of surgery that they would do in really bad cases. And it got to where people at least weren't dying of the really severe peptic ulcers, but they weren't really curing it. They were just trying to treat and manage it as best as they can. And then this one doctor found out that it was actually caused by a bacterial infection. And all you really need to do is give people a round of antibiotics. So, that's exactly what they all say don't happen. Here's a complete cure for ulcers that everyone's getting now instead of all these crazy treatments. And of course, the pharmaceutical companies are losing billions of dollars on it, but what are they going to do?
I imagine that these are also many of the same people who are anti-vaccine, because according to them, a total cure or prevention for those diseases should not happen.
They all tend to run the same circles. I'm sure they all friend each other on Facebook and follow each other on Twitter, and I'm sure they have a picnic every other Saturday.
They have their nice little echo chamber.
Yeah. If it were that simple, then how's there been any advancement in medicine, at all?
I know, yeah.
Because conspiracy. Clearly.
You can always get it down to the conspiracy.
And anything that refutes the conspiracy is part of the conspiracy.
God, it reminds me of that South Park episode how they said, yes, that's right, the 9/11 conspiracy is a conspiracy.
If the kid in Africa who basically lied about being an anti-GMO supporter doesn't faze people, I don't think anything ever will.
Yeah, true. Okay, so last week I said that if anything, Obama is just playing right into ISIL's hands by giving them exactly what they want, a way to point to the violence the U.S. causes and use that as a recruitment tool for new terrorists. Well, guess what? It's been confirmed now that they've been doing just that.
Shock and horror! I could not have seen this coming, said no one who's paying attention.
Yeah, and according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, the Islamic State jihadists have recruited more than 6,000 new fighters since America began targeting them. 1,300 of them are said to be foreigners who joined IS from outside of Syria and Iraq, which is a big thing because they were having really big problems before then trying to get new recruits from out of the country, so they're probably ready to bake Obama a cake or something.
Oh, yeah. It's not surprising, though. It's the same thing every time we bomb one of those countries. Recruiting terrorists is probably the easiest thing in the world to do when you're in an area where you basically don't know if your children are going to be alive tomorrow.
Apparently the folks on the war panel or in these many administrations, warmongering goodness, have apparently never heard or heeded the saying, you reap what you sow.
Yeah, and so since early August, there have been some 165 airstrikes on IS targets, and that's not including the ones carried out by the UK and France.
All with its fair share of collateral damage, I'm sure, but that doesn't count. It's okay. They weren't American or whatever.
No, it never counts.
And most of the people who have signed up have been between 15 and 20 years old and have never been involved in any sort of conflict before, so this is totally new blood coming in.
That's how it always happens. We've seen this many times before. It's not about they hate freedom, or it's not even about they hate Christians. It's about you're killing my family, I'm going to kill you.
Our 100-plus year long foreign policy of bombing the crap out of people has made quite a few enemies.
That's because they don't care. They don't care. This is the same group of people who, when it was discovered that our soldiers were mercilessly killing people, and even going as far as to urinate on their corpses, arrested the guy who exposed that they were doing this.
Oh, yeah. But see, they need the enemies because they've got to have someone to point to and say, hey, that's the threat, and that's why you need to give us more money and power.
I think it was Ron Paul who said it best, war is a racket.
Oh, it absolutely is. It absolutely is.
Yeah, that was Smedley Butler, I believe.
Yeah, well, I heard it from Ron Paul first, though, so I don't know. I figured he probably wouldn't have been the original one to say that, but either way, yeah.
It absolutely is a racket, though. Just look at the people who are the biggest proponents of war. You got these big-wig politicians. You got these very much smug people who sit back and have cocktails while other people's kids are blown to smithereens or sent, to die.
So basically people who have never been in a war, or if they did, apparently forgot how terrible it was like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is it. War is a Racket, the title of 2 works, a speech and a booklet by retired United States Marine Corps Major General and 2-time Medal of Honor recipient Smedley D. Butler. And it's a pretty good read, too. History is written by the winners, and so apparently is economics. That's why there's LibertyClassroom.com. Probably the best single learning resource for history and economics on the web, LibertyClassroom.com teaches U.S. history, Western Civ, and economics from actual university professors. There's lots of free material to get you started, including introductory lectures on all these subjects, and when you sign up, you get the full site's content for just $99 a year, less than the price of 2 cups of coffee a month. And if you type in the promo code Bogosity in all caps, you'll get your first year for just $88. Lectures are available in both video and audio format, so you can watch or listen to them on your computer, your phone or tablet, or in your car. Learn at your own pace about the subjects you're interested in and become a more effective debater. You'll also get access to lots of supplemental materials and even the professors themselves via the discussion forum and even live video chats. Inform yourself against the myths and propaganda of our society. Visit LibertyClassroom.com. So on a related note, and I mean, you'd think that if they're going to wage a war against ISIL, it would be over as soon as ISIL is defeated. Well, no, that's not really what we're getting from Secretary of State John Kerry. This is an analysis by the Skeptical Libertarian on his blog. And so the whole thing is, how do you know that you've really taken care of ISIS? And it says, Secretary of State John Kerry has already implied the answer when he explained how the U.S. already had legal authority to attack ISIS under the 2001 authorization for use of military force. When it was pointed out that ISIS is actually at war with Al-Qaeda right now, Kerry pointed out that ISIL used to be an Al-Qaeda affiliate, and he said, quote, by trying to change its name, it doesn't change who it is or what it does. But the thing is, it's no longer an Al-Qaeda ally. It wasn't even ISIL at the time. It was a different organization with a different name, a different leader, and different tactics, and it was focused solely on the Assad regime and not attacking fellow Muslims. So it's like, you have a hatchet, you replace the handle and the blade, but it's still the same hatchet, I guess.
There's another word we can call for this war. Permanent. Everlasting.
Perpetual war for perpetual peace.
Mm-hmm.
The great quagmire. Although it's funny, this sounds an awful lot like back in 2001 when the Republicans were saying, well, Saddam was connected to 9/11.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's,
yeah.
Hey, meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
Grief, I just had a nostalgic moment. I still remember back when I was a teen and, just getting into the furry fandom and stuff, and, well, obviously there's a lot of leftists there, and it made me, I don't know, I guess it just made me feel nostalgic for the anti-war left. I swear they've been gone for too long.
But I mean, it's just like Al-Qaeda. They like the fact that it's kind of vague and nebulous, and they can point to whoever they want to and say, well, that's part of ISIL. If they're with Assad, that's part of ISIL. If they're fighting Assad, that's part of ISIL. If they're, fighting Iraq, that's part of ISIL. But if there are enemies in Iraq but our friends in Syria, we can still make them part of ISIL if we want to.
If they once thought of ISIL at some point, and they did something that we don't like, well, then we can call them ISIL and bomb the crap out of them.
Yeah, so there's no real objective criteria for who ISIL is. Is it those supporting Assad? Is it those who are rebelling against Assad? Is it those fighting the Iraqi government? You don't have any specifics like that, so you don't have any real enemy, so there's no point at which you can say the enemy has been defeated.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it also gives them excuse to get a lot of money.
Mhm.
Well, if you say, well, we need the money because the enemy, well, then there you go. Stupid people will buy into it.
And I find that a lot of these warmonger folk will say, oh, well, you hate the soldiers. Okay, well, even if I were to accept that they were good people and everything, how is throwing them into your wars to die honoring them or being good to them?
Oh, the soldiers are being used. They're totally being used.
Well, it's the same thing as if you disagree with something, that clearly means you are against something entirely.
Yeah, like the, oh, well, you think UHC might not be the best idea or might possibly be immoral? Well, then you want to see seniors dying in the streets, and you want to beat the crap out of, like, people who are sick and stuff, you big immoral meanie.
And if you're against the war, you hate troops and you love the terrorists and you just want to go and join ISIL and take down the American government or whatever.
Yeah, heaven forbid we've heard this song and dance way too many times.
I've already been compared to ISIS, but that's because of something completely different.
That's because of that costume you wore on Saturday night, wasn't it?
Clearly, I walked down the streets riding a camel, carrying a big drum of oil. I had a scimitar, and I was smoking a hookah pipe.
Okay.
I can't help it. It's a Saturday tradition. But seriously, ISIS is now the new Hitler in terms of, like, whenever people want to compare you to something horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, but Gamergate. How many of us have already been compared to ISIS?
Yeah. Well, the lesson I want people to take from this is, if you voted for John Kerry in 2004 because you were against the Iraq War, if Kerry had won in 2004, do we have any reason to believe things would be any different now?
No,
absolutely not.
None. X-nay on the S part.
I remember Kerry's campaign. All it was Purple Heart, Purple Heart, Purple Heart. I was a soldier, Purple Heart. Now, when that's your majority of your campaign, you know that guy is going to be pro-war.
Oh, I remember when Aaron Russo, one of his campaign team, found on Kerry's website there was a statement that he was in favor of a 2-year forced conscription of every male between 20 and 22, or I forget what the age range was. And
oh, that son of a... That's the reason that I found that I've generally always disliked Republicans, because I've always hated the draft and the idea that I get to be their slave or their bodies in a war.
Yeah, but Kerry's a Democrat, so what's his excuse?
But of course, as we all know, war is waged for good intentions and noble reasons when it's done by a Democrat.
But, he couldn't wait after that was pointed out. His people got it right off the website and said, he lied about what we said. Well, guess what? There's this place on the internet called the Wayback Machine where you can look at cached copies of websites and still see it. So, yep.
What gets put on the internet stays on the internet, sweetheart. It don't work that way.
Hackers, terrorists, the NSA. But I repeat myself. Your online security is under attack, and the weakest point is your password. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass plugs into your browser and allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords anywhere on the web, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers and all your computers, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, membership info, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications and even mobile devices, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now. Okay, so we just played the LastPass promo, and Travis, I'm sorry to say that you had a bad experience with them. Can you tell us about it?
Grief. So, last Saturday night, I was fiddling around, opened up my LastPass vault, got into the grid to check and basically just make sure it was the, since I was using the grid multi-factor authentication scheme, just to see if it was the right one, like the one that matched the one I had print out. And, okay, I mean, it looked like it matched. And then I figured I'd re-enable it, just to be extra safe. And so, fast forward to that morning, and I'm logging in using my grid and password. Oh dearie, the grid doesn't seem to work. Okay, well, no matter, maybe I just entered the numbers wrong, or something. Oh, that's not good. So it says, well, and it's showing okay, well, so I can temporarily get the grid disabled. Okay, click. Yeah, we just sent an email to your recovery email or one usually with your account, and I'm thinking, oh, donkey bollocks, except the only place I had that password for that account written was in my LastPass.
So this kind of gets you set up in a catch-22. You need your recovery email to get into LastPass, but you need to get into LastPass to get to your recovery email.
Yeah, and long story short, I'm freaking out and get to my mom since technically it's not really its own separate email account. First off, it's with Verizon. Yeah,
Well, there's your problem.
I'm not even going to get in more into that. But anyways, so what ends up happening is I end up, and don't ask me how we thought this was a good idea. I mean, just to give you an idea of how out of it we both were, since I was apparently making her crazy and nervous with this, we thought we would delete my recovery email account and maybe remake it with the same name, figuring that would reset the password, allowing me to get my dang vault back. And stupid idea in retrospect, but,
Just so everyone knows, no one lets you do that. And just think of what a huge security problem that would be, because if you're deleting your email because I want to get rid of this thing and I don't want any more email that's sent there to go anywhere, if someone can just come in right behind you, someone else, and remake it with the same name, and now they're starting to get your email, that's not a good thing. So I don't know of any email provider that lets you do that.
Yeah, and by the way, I found out why I thought it was a good idea to write that stuff down, despite what you told me, after the thing happened. Directly from their LastPass security challenge. Quote, stop use ways to improve your score. Quote, stop storing passwords insecurely. If you were storing your passwords in your browser on a scrap of paper, in an email, in an MS document, online in your Google Docs, or any form that isn't encrypted, then you are taking an unnecessary and serious risk. The LastPass installer or tools function can import to make sure you don't have them stored insecurely on your browser. Now, maybe to someone who's, more tech and cyber security savvy like you, Shane, probably would see that and read it as, okay, so they mean in general. It's one thing, however, for the really important stuff like the password to my recovery email. To someone like me who has no sense of context and who really doesn't have that kind of experience that you do, is going to think, okay, so I should put them all in LastPass and to hell with paper.
Yeah, and this is one of the things where I think those of us who have been getting out over, the decades and telling people what to do about security, I think this is one of the cases where we really screwed up, because back when we were saying this, we were saying don't write down your password, it was generally in the context of, people weren't really doing stuff like this online, just the e-commerce stuff was just starting to get started up. The big problem was you had people logging on to their networks in an office environment, and what they would do is they would write down their username and a password on a Post-it note and stick it to the monitor. So anyone else who's in the office, their coworkers, the cleaning crew, whoever can get their password, and so that's why they say don't write passwords down.
Okay, because whereas with me, I had it printed out and put in a secure place in my house. Also, we have 4 dogs to guard it. We don't rarely get guests. Oh, and including a pit bull. And I think my dad has a gun, just in case.
Well, yeah, I have the recovery email and password to mine print out and put in a safe place. And I mean, the thing is, where I have this put, if someone were to break in and get to that place, by the time they've got there, I'm pretty much already screwed as it is. And, my passwords yeah, I mean, if they can get that far. And besides, the people who break into your house are probably not going to be looking for your passwords. They're going to want your stereo, your TV, whatever. That's not what you're worried about.
I mean, and the one that was constantly going through my head as I was reading this stuff on LastPass, since it was another thing like use a strong password, like basically telling you how to remember a bunch of gibberish type of passwords and stuff, was... It reminds me of that video you did responding to How the World Works way back when, and the comment you got of him, and someone was trying to say, well, but he really meant this, that, or the other thing. And as you said to him, it's like, well, then he should have worded his point more clearly. And that's kind of where I'm at with this stuff with the LastPass security challenge.
Yeah, and this probably should be made more clear. So you've got that one email where, because there's all sorts of ways LastPass has that if you get locked out of your password, then you can get it back, but they all depend on you having access to that recovery email. So what I recommend doing with your recovery email is go into LastPass and randomly generate the password, but check that box that says, something like avoid ambiguous characters. So it doesn't do things like a capital I and a lowercase l, or a capital O and a 0, things that might look the same. But you randomly generate it like that and then print it out or write it down and put it somewhere safe. And that way, if that happens, you can pull it out and just type in that password. You don't need to memorize it. I mean, it's printed out and hopefully you'll never have to use it. But if you do, I mean, that's, the one time you pull it out and do that.
And if you're wondering why I went to Verizon, it was because originally I was primarily using Yahoo Mail, which, in addition to being incredibly spammy, was giving me troubles back when I was in college, because what happened was, I noticed there tends to be a really big lag between the time the person sends the email and when I get it. And I'm talking days here, to the point where I was in a group like in my psychology class, and I was getting yelled at by people for not doing the work I was supposed to do because I didn't get the email in time, or what have you. So I figure, okay, so no matter, I figure we're paying for it, so I guess we'll, maybe get to the one provided by my ISP. But nowadays, needless to say, after this fun experience, I won't be going back to Verizon for email. And it sounds like I've heard from pretty much everyone who, to put it bluntly, is more tech literate than me, that yeah, Gmail is the way to go for that. And yesterday I pretty much spent, I don't even know how long, pretty much resetting and moving all my emails from various accounts from like Hotmail and Yahoo and Verizon to my appropriate Gmail accounts.
I still use Hotmail. I don't know. It's been pretty good to me.
But I don't recommend the grid authentication for two-factor authentication if you're not a tech head. The one I recommend and the one I use is Google Authenticator.
Yeah, and of course I'm not yet employed though, so I really don't have, the money to spare for the smartphone I would need, since it looks like the grid is the only non-premium option that doesn't require a smartphone, which was kind of sad. So, yeah.
But yeah, you have to understand that if something like that screws up, I hope they can help you. I hope they can do something like reset the grid and get it to your new email if you can convince them you are who you say you are and say, okay, just use this new email address instead.
Yeah, since, I actually checked just to double check and I found out, okay, so I never even touched my LastPass cache, so that wouldn't have been a problem if it came to that.
Yeah. But the thing is, the whole point of this is it's TNO security. It's trust no one. The whole idea is that no one, not LastPass, not the NSA, not hackers, not anyone can get your stuff. You are in charge. You are in control of all that. And unfortunately, that means you can also screw it up if you do something dumb. So,
and what was especially upsetting to me, the two biggest accounts of those, aside from, the stuff I've been on like for Affinity for several years and have all those messages and history and stuff, it was also stuff like, well, long story short, apparently a hacker or someone, to make a point about how insecure my university systems were, hacked a bunch of sensitive information out. And to help make up for this, the university gave us like a free account at a credit report site, including about $1 million worth of fraud insurance.
Wow.
And guess which password and username? Guess where those were stored?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so losing access to those would be kind of a kick in the pants. As with losing my Steam account, losing all those... I wouldn't want to have to rebuy all those legally purchased games. Now, thankfully, I'm not the person who has like about 150 games and has probably spent more on games than on food, but even then, it's the principle, Yeah,
well, and usually what you can do there is just do the password change and say do the password reset. But if you were using that same email for that, you'd have to contact them in some way and figure out.
The login I had was in LastPass, though. I was pretty much completely locked out. The only reason I was even able to get into my Skype and other stuff like that was because I have it set in to automatically, save the password to log in. However, in case you're wondering, yes, I have actually tried to access a password that was saved like that before, and no, you can't do that. As soon as you click the prompt or the field, it will just immediately go blank.
Oh, yeah. They think of those things. They don't want anyone to be able to get your password. So, the bottom line is, if you lose your LastPass master password or your second factor authentication, you can still get it with your email. But if you lose both the master password and the recovery email address. That's the thing. And it is just so unfortunate that it happened that you ended up losing both of those. So hopefully no one else will find themselves in that position after listening to that. Yeah. I mean, really, all of your really important passwords, you can feel safe printing them out and sticking them in that safe place. You know, if you got a desk drawer that locks or somewhere like that. Remember, the whole idea is they can't get in because any back door that lets the good guys in is a back door that lets the bad guys in too. The math is the math, and it works the same for everybody, which is what the state apologists need to keep in mind for this next story, which is the FBI complaining about new security measures in smartphones that stop the police from searching through them.
But are they the good guys anyway?
Well, oh god.
Well, it depends on who you ask, I guess.
But this is from FBI Director James B. Comey, and he criticized Apple and Google for making smartphone encryption so secure that law enforcement issues can't get the information off of the devices, even when they have valid search warrants. But the math doesn't care whether you have a warrant either. You know, the math is just the math.
And even then there's the question of whether or not the warrant really truly is valid. I mean, if it's for something for a victimless crime like a drug search or something silly like that, well, you know.
Well, and it's just the fact that if there's something special or magical they can do so they can bypass all of that when they have a search warrant, well, I mean, a hacker could bypass it the same way.
Exactly. Grief. And it reminds me of these horror stories I've heard of people who have been really brutally hacked or something. Like, probably the nastiest cases I've heard is, well, like, what they'll do is they'll hack into their account or computer, put child porn on it.
Oh, yeah.
Notify the authorities, and, well, yeah, you can figure the rest from there.
Yeah, because there've actually been cases where it was proven that hackers put the child porn on his computer, and they convicted him anyway because it's against law just to have child porn on your computer. You know, I guess mens rea doesn't apply. And
I swear this is a cliche or saying that has annoyed me since the day I heard it, even before I became a teen. Possession is 9/10 of the law. Yeah.
Yeah, so the police have said that the ability to search photos, messages, and web histories on smartphones is essential to solving a range of serious crimes, including murder, child pornography, and attempted terrorist attacks. But funny how we only ever seem to read about it being used to bust people for narcotics.
Funny how that works. And I mean, seriously, that's like the only method they have? I mean, they can't actually do some good old-fashioned field work and, like, investigate and stuff?
Yeah, they might actually have to investigate, yeah.
Well, that's too much work.
Yeah.
Besides, isn't the NSA supposed to be solving all that problem?
He said, quote, "There will come a day when it will matter a great deal to the lives of people that we will be able to gain access."
Someone think of the children!
And he couldn't understand why companies would market something expressly to allow people to place themselves beyond the law.
Says the guy who violates the high law of the land, the Constitution, but,
Yeah.
Go figure. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, when I was continually reading this article, it just struck me as this guy just whining.
Yeah, it is.
And basically like a bully complaining that someone found a way around him or something, you know? Well, we can't hack your phone because we just want to because reasons. Oh, but look at these people who might possibly be hurt by us not being able to violate your rights and privacy for no reason.
Yeah.
Good grief, someone put a pacifier in his mouth. It's like, if you're gonna be a baby, we ought to treat you like one.
That's usually how it works.
Yeah. And you also have Oren Kerr, a former Justice Department computer crimes lawyer, saying, quote, "The outrage is directed at warrantless mass surveillance, and this is a very different context. But again, the math doesn't care."
Reality, not giving a single thought about your feelings or your magical piece of paper since ever.
Yeah.
Last I checked, spells and incantations are not a real thing.
And then you have John J. Escalante, Chief of Detectives for Chicago's Police Department, and as soon as I say Chicago, you know what to expect.
Man.
Apple will become the phone of choice for the pedophile. The average pedophile at this point is probably thinking, I've got to get an Apple phone.
Yes, because if you like your freedom and you like your privacy, oh, well, you must be up to no good. You know, no possible way you could just not like people spying on you.
So what do they think? Apple's new marketing slogan is "An apple a day keeps the copper away."
Oh, God.
There's a reason why no one hires us to write ads.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And you also have LA Police Detective Brian Collins.
Oh, boy, you know what we're going to get.
Who does forensic analysis of smartphones, and he says he can crack into most of them, but the percentage of phones that he can crack into has been dwindling, and he says, quote, "I've been an investigator for almost 27 years. It's concerning that we're beginning to go backwards with this technology."
Backwards?
We're not going backwards. We're going forwards. Forwards is the direction of better security, better privacy, better encryption.
I know, my thoughts exactly.
Doesn't this guy have any minorities to bother? What the hell is he doing complaining about phones? Seriously, whenever I hear LA cops...
Or Chicago.
You already know that they're no good.
But this is what gives me hope for the future, because when our country was founded, our best defense against a tyrannical government was an armed populace. But guns can be taken away from you. Now, in the 21st century, our best defense is math, and no one can take math away from you.
Of course, that won't stop them from trying.
Yeah, it reminds me of something you posted on Facebook. The camera is the new gun.
Oh, lots of people have said that.
Yeah, I'm sure, but...
I think I got it from Judge Napolitano, and I don't think he came up with it originally. Bogosity.tv is a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates program, an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for sites to earn advertising fees by advertising and linking to Amazon.com. Just clear your cookies and go to amazon.bogosity.tv, or check the right-hand side of the podcast page for Amazon's best deals, including the deal of the day and limited-time lightning deals on all sorts of great products. So next time you buy online, go to amazon.bogosity.tv. And now it's time to shoot the eye out of this week's biggest Bogon Emitter. So one of the numerous... You got that reference?
I did.
Yes. Red Ryder BB gun.
Fun fact.
We'll shoot your eye out.
Fun fact, I'd never seen the movie.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who... There's a lot of, classic movies that I've never seen. Never sat through Ghostbusters, 1 or 2.
1 is fine. Forget 2 ever existed, but 1 is great.
Never saw the full trilogy of Back to the Future.
That's good. Watch the first Matrix movie, watch the Animatrix, but don't watch the other 2 movies. Forget they existed. Anyway, so one of the numerous cops behaving badly stories we didn't do, as you've probably already guessed, is the story of the guy who was shot by police because he had a BB gun in a Walmart that he had picked up from the airsoft aisle. So what happened was, the story as it broke was, John Crawford picked up a BB gun from the aisle, and he was walking around Walmart, just looking around, shopping. Police thought he was armed and dangerous and shot him for no reason. So that hits the news and social media, and then people start, of course, complaining about these trigger-happy cops, but what I want to talk about here is the reaction of the major news media and even the social media, which is that these crazy libertarians are so dumb they can't do research, and what was really going on was that this guy was running through the aisles, pointing the gun at people, and even shooting a couple of people with pellets, and they also said the police ordered him to drop the weapon and he refused, so they were perfectly justified in shooting him, and all this proves that libertarians are unthinking morons who just leap on any old story. Not like they think critically about these things, and, well, now the security camera footage has been released, and guess what?
None of that happened.
It's exactly what people were saying it was. In fact, it's pretty much the worst case scenario. He got the gun from the airsoft aisle. He was walking around a bit, the way you do when you're still shopping. And then he either made or answered a cell phone call, and apparently that was to his girlfriend. And all he's doing here for most of this video is standing around this aisle, talking on his phone, holding the rifle. He's not pointing at anyone, he's pointing at the floor. There's not even anyone else in the aisle with him. And then you have the 911 dispatch, and about 15 seconds later, the Beaver Creek police come in. Crawford doesn't even see them. Just out of the blue, they shoot him. He drops the BB gun, dives behind the aisle, and that's it. They never identify themselves as police, never order him to drop his gun. Didn't even try to get his attention. They just shot him.
So when are we going to get the trial where the cops are completely left off the hook despite video evidence?
Oh, I think they already said I think they've already had the grand jury, and the grand jury didn't indict him.
There you go.
Perhaps even more frustrating than the actual event would also be the comments. Like this one dude I'm looking at on the YouTube video. Toy guns have a red-orange tip. Not saying they should have shot him, but he was walking around the store with a gun.
Yeah, these are the excuse makers.
Oh, yeah, these are the apologists. Like this one that says, quote, "Ever since I was a child, my parents told me don't ever point your toy guns at police. This idiot didn't listen to his parents or didn't care. Now he's DEAD and has no one to blame but himself."
I don't know, I'd blame the guy who shot him.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good place to start.
Here's another one, quote, "The man walks around with a weapon in public. Why on earth would I give the armed man a chance to shoot at me? Point a weapon means he saw police and saw they had weapons drawn and still held the weapon. He is stupid and people die for being stupid." And again, that isn't at all what happened.
And even if that was true, there's one little fun problem about that. Why you exempt the police from that?
True.
Oh, but they're above us mere mortals. So, I guess they don't count 'cause of reasons.
Well, they're the law. They have a badge and a uniform and everything.
They have magic powers.
Badges are magical.
Quote, "Not saying," this is a different person, all these are different people. Quote, "Not saying they should have shot him, but he was walking around a store with a gun." I mean, how are you supposed to buy a BB gun that they sell at Walmart?
Oh god, BBGunControl. Hashtag BBGunControl.
Quote, "Why in the bleep would you pick up an all-black airsoft rifle that resembles a real assault rifle and walk around with it in a Walmart? Did he just want to feel gangsta while he went shopping for pet food? The cops may have overreacted, but the guy who picked up the gun to begin with is even dumber than the cops."
And how's he supposed to buy it again?
Shopping, how does it work?
Yeah, quote, "Why the hell did he pick it up and carry it around the store? Stupid, deadly mistake."
Apparently to these people, shopping is more complicated than magnets.
Oh, I don't know. Quote, "This shooting revolves around what is and what is not reasonable behavior. The victim acted unreasonably. The police acted reasonably. The result is one dead dumbass, end of story." And remember, these are all the people who have supposedly seen the video. They are commenting on the comments of the YouTube video showing the security footage.
Fear and or Stockholm Syndrome.
I bet $1 million that they didn't actually see the footage.
It looks like, because you've got like, quote, "The moment you flag someone with a barrel," he never did that, "you're conveying it in a threatening manner. Looks like either suicide by cop or really unfortunate stupidity to me." And hey, isn't that another one of those passive voice type things, suicide by cop? So it's not the cop's fault, it's his.
What the hell is suicide by cop? That's not suicide. That's like if somebody invaded my home and killed me. Suicide by home invader.
Yeah.
That's just more excuse making and just shifting the blame.
This happens so often, it just pains me to say, when I hear people say, well, we don't have a police state here. I mean, you want a police state? Go to Afghanistan. Yeah, by that logic, here's what you're doing. I used to weigh 300 pounds, right? Obviously, I was pretty fat then. Well, I've lost 70 pounds. And yeah, I still have quite a lot of gut on me and I have a way to go, but I'm not fat. If you want someone who's fat, you should have seen me before her. Yeah, order, difference of magnitude, not of kind, folks.
If the only way you can show yourself to be good is to point to someone who's even worse, what do you really have?
No kidding. It reminds me of how in the atheist experience, how this one guy tried to defend Christianity by comparing it to Islam, and he's like, really? That's the best you got? Yeah, Christianity. It's not Islam.
Well, and then you have all of those, well, mistakes were made all around people, making that comments. No, they weren't.
Goddamn fence sitters. They're the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, at least the morons who are just blatantly on the side of cops have the cojones to actually pick a side.
You want the one that brings it home?
Please.
Here's the one that brings it home. Quote, "Tired of your posts. Sorry, your own goal in life is to hate cops. When ISIS or someone else breaks in and rapes all the women in your family, including your mom, call an entertainer or sports star for help. Don't bother the cops."
Told you.
Yeah.
ISIS is the new Hitler.
Yes, because if the cops don't do it, no one else will.
Folks, just think about this for a minute. We have blatant video footage of cops shooting a guy before he even has the chance to turn around. Stop acting like oh, this guy was just trying to be badass and, carrying a gun. He was buying a BB gun. This is something we've had in our lives for years. This is not something new. No, we've been able to buy BB guns before without having to worry about getting shot. Let me tell you something. I worry more about being shot by a cop than I ever do being worried about getting killed by a terrorist. You're more likely to be killed by a cop.
Much more. You're more likely to be killed by a cow than a terrorist. I'm not making that up. It's actually true.
I'm told you're actually more likely to be killed by fireworks on July the 4th than you are by a terrorist.
Stop making excuses. You hate cops is the new get-out-of-jail-free card? No, I don't think so. Yes, I don't like cops, but that doesn't change the fact that they shot a guy in cold blood.
Yeah, and of course there's the old isolated incident thing. Well, as our old pal Hawkeye said, there's just one itty-bitty little problem with that. The entire police force, the legal system, and so on, protects and shields them.
Well, it's just like what we're saying about the pedophile priests in the Catholic Church. They say, well, that's just a few rogue priests. Yeah, but the Catholic Church has been shielding them. This is no different. No different at all.
And it isn't even just the police. Here in Connecticut, we had a cop who brutally battered a guy. And when the police actually tried to arrest him, the state attorney told them that they couldn't because, quote-unquote, it was too complicated of a scenario, despite the fact that there was actual video footage of the guy battering this dude.
Jeez.
So even when good cops try to stop bad cops, they're still blocked by their higher-ups.
And all that makes these morons in the press and social media this week's biggest Bogon Emitter. You say you don't like Bitcoin? Why not? Oh, because it's not gold. No problem. Just go to coins.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to Coinable, where you can buy gold or silver coins or bars with your Bitcoins, with literally up-to-the-minute spot pricing. Now there's no reason not to jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon. Whether you're a Bitcoin miner, service operator, Bitcoin business owner, or market speculator, you can get gold and silver from reputable dealers. And Coinable has Bitcoin liquidity for fast processing of your order. Coinable even utilizes a special shipping infrastructure to ensure that your investment arrives safely at your door. And you know what? By going to coins.bogosity.tv, you won't pay a penny more, a Satoshi more for your purchase. But you'll help this podcast. You can even sell your gold and silver for Bitcoin as well. Coinable is your Bitcoin to gold marketplace. So go to coins.bogosity.tv and start turning your Bitcoins into gold now. And now it's time to live tweet this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire!
And this week, it goes to Mayor Jim Artis of Peoria, Illinois, as well as Peoria Police, a couple of judges, and who knows what else. Here's what happened. John Daniel decided to make a parody Twitter account for the Peoria mayor. And the fake account tweeted obvious satire, like all sorts of vulgarities, references to drug use, things like that. So what did Mayor Artis do? He had the police track him down using his IP address, an investigation that apparently took 3 weeks. And I sure am glad Peoria doesn't have any murders or anything like that, and that leaves them with all that free time to do that. 2 judges actually signed off on search warrants. A 3rd judge approved a SWAT team raid of Daniel's house. All over this parody Twitter account, and all they ended up doing is arresting his roommate Jacob Elliott for, survey says, marijuana possession.
Man, this is just an all-around case and no fun allowed.
So Dave, does this also remind you of that one movie Cyberbully, only somehow even worse?
Oh god, don't even get me started on Cyberbully. Don't even get me started.
I mean, he couldn't have posted or had one of his people post, oh, by the way, this guy is being a wise ass, that's not me, or something on... I mean, come on!
Yeah, I don't think anyone would have believed it anyway. I mean, it's just...
This actually reminds me of a very recent story. Norwich, Connecticut actually had a huge prostitution sting, and they said they were having an undercover investigation. Turned out all they did was look these people up on Craigslist.
Oh, I bet I know what they were doing in that investigation.
But...
Yeah.
Man, if this is the extent of police investigation, what the hell is wrong with us as a society?
This isn't really an investigation, though. This is going after someone who embarrassed the mayor. I mean, that's all it is.
Yeah, this is basically, I'm gonna get revenge because you called me a name.
And the Twitter account has been suspended. Incredibly, the judge in the case has upheld the search, saying they had probable cause to search the home because that was where the guy was when he made the Twitter parody account.
I bring you both back to my comment regarding whether or not it really was a legit search warrant.
Yeah. Well, and in fairness, the judge has said he wants them to explain things like, if they were looking for a guy who was making a Twitter parody account, why were they looking like under a pillow and in the closet and things like that? So there's still some hope that it might get thrown out, but the fact that it even got this far is deplorable.
And depressing. It's a reason why I haven't really been much into politics lately.
But I mean, it's an important precedent. It's like, if you make fun of the government, this is probable cause for a search where they can then arrest you on anything they find, even if it's completely irrelevant to what they were originally looking for. That's the precedent they've set here.
Kind of makes me want to start my own parody Twitter account.
God.
Oh, there have been a ton of them. A ton of parody Twitter accounts for this mayor have popped up since this happened, with pictures of him with a Hitler mustache and all sorts of things.
Yeah, and I have no qualm in saying I'm not hard to find. I challenge you people. Come find me.
Well, a friend of those involved is Justin Glaw, and he wrote his story up on Vice.com. For example, quote, "The officers tore the 28-year-old's home apart," that's John Daniels' home, "seizing electronics and taking several of his roommates in for questioning. One woman who lived there spent 3 hours in an interrogation room, all for a parody Twitter account. It was a joke, a lark, but it brought the police to Daniel's door. The cops even took Daniel and one of his housemates in for in-depth questioning. They showed up at their jobs, cuffed them, and confiscated their phones because of a bunch of Twitter jokes."
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's some silly nonsense.
Still remember the free speech warriors, or no, basically people who blather on about free speech. I have a sneaking suspicion that they haven't been shouting bloody outrage over this. Although if they have, then, that's spark of hope for me.
But apparently, this Justin Glaw guy has actually been doing a lot of work with things about police misconduct and invalid searches. And so he does a good job in here of showing that this was not an isolated incident. It even got to the point where the Illinois Attorney General's office ordered that they turn over an internal report regarding a lot of these acts of alleged misconduct. And the city and the police both refused to do it. They refused to comply with the Illinois Attorney General.
Of course they did. That's expected at this point. I'd be disappointed if they didn't.
And that has to make the mayor and everyone else at the city of Peoria this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Well, that wraps up this Shut Your Cake Hole Nazi edition of the Bogosity podcast. Please visit the forums of Bogosity.tv where you can read the show notes and join the discussion on these and other subjects. This podcast is free but not free to produce, so please donate via PayPal or Bitcoin at the top of the Bogosity.tv website or down the right-hand side of the podcast page, and give generously to keep this podcast going. And if you'd like to contribute to the podcast, just send a question, statement, news article, or rant to podcast@Bogosity.tv. Put it in an audio file, and if it's good enough, it'll get played right in the podcast. Thank you for listening, and thanks again to Dave Turcotte and Travis Retriever for joining me.
It was a pleasure.
This podcast is part of the conspiracy. I'm Jesse Ventura, signing out.
Until next time, here's a quote from Václav Havel. "The only thing I can recommend at this stage is a sense of humor, an ability to see things in their ridiculous and absurd dimensions, to laugh at others and at ourselves, a sense of irony regarding everything that calls out for parody in this world." The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 3.0 Imported License.
Bogosity.
Do you want answers to creationist claims against evolution? Would you like to know more about evolution yourself, or even engage creationists more directly, with actual peer-reviewed sources to back you up? My book, How Evolution is Scientific, is designed to show the basics of evolutionary theory and how it is so well supported using the scientific method. It's impeccably sourced, with references to the actual scientific material, and is arranged using the creationists' own criteria of what is scientific. Using their own arguments against them, see how evolution is scientific, but creationism is not, based on observations, accurate predictions, logic, and evidence. Get answers to common creationist claims, and even a primer on abiogenesis, the start of all life. It's all in my book, How Evolution is Scientific, available at Amazon and on Kindle, EPUB, and PDF as well. Get How Evolution is Scientific and never be taken in by creationists again.
Stay strong and be free. Or at least try to be.
Hey, that was my line.
Oh, good. Now we're stealing lines from other people?
Yeah. Actually, well, I remember hearing someone complain that you weren't using your catchphrase, and I figured, why not? I'll bring it back.
I used it on a couple of videos recently, but I figure, you don't want to do too much of it, yeah.
We're bringing catchphrases back.
And all that makes these morons in the press and social media this week's biggest Bogon Emitter.
I would also add to that the person who called 911.
Well, I mean, I can, just not really trying to do a Mickey Mouse roll call here, We can go down the list.
Everybody who was in that Walmart that day, you're all guilty.